The following program deals with a controversial subject. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information. This program contains images which may be disturbing to younger or sensitive viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Tonight, on In Search Of, a beautiful woman casts an evil spell. An innocent girl plays games with the occult. Will each fall victim to the deadly hazards of witchcraft? And in Africa, a pair of lions terrorize and devour human prey. We'll go in search of the mysterious Maneaters of Tasavo. Are we secretly at war with aliens from another world? Some say the invasion of Earth has already begun, and this man claims he was taken prisoner. Do ghostly hitchhikers stalk our roadways? The stranger in your headlights may be stranger than anything you ever imagined. I'm Mitch Pileggi, and this is In Search Of. Witchcraft is a mystic practice that some see as a spiritual awakening, while others view it as a sinister portal to the occult. Even for those who just dabble in sorcery, the price of admission can be more than they ever bargained for. When good spells go bad, there may be hell to pay. Witchcraft is an ancient practice, the belief that a person can manipulate nature and destiny by casting a magic spell. But there may be a terrible price to pay.
Spells can go one way or the other, depending on the timing of the working, the reason for the working, the result that they want.
Circle, circle, circling bright. Cast this circle in love and light.
Some witches practice a nature-based religion called Wicca.
Vision and sight.
They worship ancient pagan deities and perform rituals that celebrate the seasons and the phases of the moon. This is rare footage of an actual ceremony.
And call upon the spirits of air.
The spirit of fire.
Spirit of water.
Guardians of the north. Come and be with us on this rite. So mote it be. So mote it be.
But there are other witches who practice darker arts.
There's white witchcraft and there's black witchcraft. Usually the black witchcraft is for power or greed.
Catherine Brooks used to practice black magic.
Black witchcraft is so much more inviting because you get quick gratification. Usually, you find that the witches that get into the most trouble are usually the black witches. The year after I did this one money spell, the year to the date, my car got broken into and I had all my stuff stolen from me. It's never happened to me.
Tradition has it that once the dark forces have been unleashed, even experts at black witchcraft can't escape the consequences.
There was a girl that they called Cat because she was one of the darkest witches and most powerful. She could do spells and have them come true within an hour.
According to Catherine Brooks, Cat had her eye on an apartment in the French Quarter of New Orleans. But someone already lived there, an elderly man whose wife had died the year before.
She started doing spells to get the tenant out of there. I think it only took her 2 weeks to do the magic. She got this man put into a home by doing a certain kind of magic that can make someone go crazy. She moved into the apartment like 40 days later.
But Kat didn't live in her new home for long.
3 months after she moved into the apartment, they found her dead in her bed. When they did the autopsy, they said that it was foul play, that she was strangled. The thing is that there was no impressions or anything.
It is alleged that the police officers who investigated Kat's death stumbled upon an important clue.
Kat had kept a journal of all the spells that she did. A week before the accident happened, she used a Ouija board to communicate with spirits. And she had written in this journal that there was a really strong spirit inside of there that she was trying to exorcise out of it, but she couldn't.
It seems that Kat had discovered that the old man hadn't been the only resident of the apartment.
The spirit of his wife was staying in there with the husband. And so Kat evicted this man into a home and really pissed off this wife.
According to Catherine Brooks, Kat's journal states that the wife's spirit came to her at night to strike fear into her dark heart.
While she was sleeping, she felt the spirit above her, and she would wake up and she would feel this pressure on her. The day before that she was killed, she had made a journal entry saying that she had felt like the spirit was so heavy on her that it felt like it was choking her.
Police ignored the journal entries, and Kat's death officially remains an unsolved murder. But to those who knew her, what happened is no mystery.
It's a laughing joke at the Witchers' Corner that she was killed by that spirit because she had done such the hardest black magic that you can do. She just inflicted so much pain on him that his mate just came back and killed her.
According to witch Raven Monani, witchcraft is so complex and powerful that even benign spells cast by accomplished witchcrafters can still go tragically wrong. And the threefold law of casting spells also makes it much more dangerous.
Anything you do, whether it be good or bad, it will come back to you 3 times. So that if you were to do something bad to someone, you would be paid back 3 times worse than what you did. The more adept you are at magic or spell work, the higher the price to pay.
I've seen some witches do love spells and have gotten raped, and I mean, it's just, you don't want to mess with it.
Stories abound of witches who regret using their craft to find love.
I lived in a building that was like 90% witches, and one of the girls was doing a love spell. She had done the spell over, 3 days for this particular guy.
Shortly after completing the ritual, the young woman's ordeal began.
6 days after the last day of doing the spell, she started getting these phone calls. And she didn't know who it was.
The calls increased and became more disturbing.
The guy would call and make comments about her or how she looked or that he wanted to have sex with her and all these things.
Stop calling me.
The young witch realized that her spell had worked, but not on the man she wanted.
She knew that it was a stranger, just someone, off the street.
Her every moment was fraught with fear. Did the stalker know where she lived? Was he lurking in the shadows, watching?
It got to the point where she had to call the police, and she ended up having to move out of the complex.
For the inexperienced, working with the powers of witchcraft can be disastrous, even without casting a spell. One website report offers this classic case of witchcraft in the wrong hands. The alleged tragedy began when Sarah and her friends gathered for what was supposed to be a harmless afternoon of fun.
Concentrate, everybody.
One of the teenagers had found an old witchboard and they wanted to try it out. Little did they realize what malevolent forces they were unleashing. For according to serious practitioners, a witchboard is not a toy.
It's a portal for huge evil.
The kids giggled and teased each other as one by one, they asked the oracle a question. Finally, it was Sarah's turn.
Okay, next question.
What is in my near future? Right. Something good. Something good.
Something good.
D.
D. Could be dollars.
Dollars. Deals. Come on.
D-O. Oh.
You're not moving it, right, guys?
No.
Okay.
E.
D-E.
A.
The communicator spelled out dead, then stopped.
I don't want to play anymore. This is weird.
The terrified teenager quit the game while her friends sought a harmless explanation. They didn't get one. Instead, the communicator spelled out accident. The next day, Sarah went out for her morning jog, possibly trying to put the witchboard experience out of her mind. She heard a sound behind her. The young girl died at the scene. Witchboards, incantations, strange rituals. It is said that witchcraft is not a game. The line between white and black magic is very thin and very easy to cross. If the passage of time has not diminished the power of this ancient practice, the question remains: do those who practice witchcraft control destiny? Some say they are only tempting fate. Coming up, are aliens using humans as laboratory specimens? And this man found himself on a collision course with an angry ghost. But first, a bloodthirsty rampage by two savage lions in search of human prey. A hunger for human flesh triggers one of the most savage killing sprees on record. Before it ends, nearly 140 men fall prey to the jaws of two murderous lions. Over a century later, experts still struggle for explanations. The trail of blood leads us to the jungle of East Africa in search of the Maneaters of Tasavo. The rule of the jungle is kill or be killed, and this is the reigning predator. The king of African wildlife is rarely a match for modern weapons or the relentless stampede of man-made machines. While they pose only a small threat to humans, there have been rare incidents of lions attacking people. But nothing compares to two rogue beasts that developed a savage taste for human flesh. They were the Maneaters of Tasavo, and they went on a killing spree that has never been duplicated. What caused the lions to become man-eaters unlike anything Africa has ever seen? To find out, we travel to the heart of the Dark Continent. Tasavo, the very name means place of slaughter. The two lions that once prowled the plains of this tiny region of Kenya held its people in a reign of terror and halted the construction of a railroad. In 1898, under the leadership of John Patterson, hundreds of Indian workers were brought to Kenya to build a railroad across the country. Shortly after construction started, workers began to disappear in the middle of the night. Soon it was discovered that two rogue lions were responsible.
Lions usually have some bit of fear of man, but these were just brazen. They would just go into these workers' tents at night and just drag them out without a worry in the world.
This unnatural lack of fear led many to believe the lions were evil spirits, called forth by native shaman to slay a monster they called the Iron Snake.
The railroad would have been built many, many months earlier if it hadn't been for the lions. At one point, they absolutely paralyzed operations for 3 weeks when they were coming in and taking a man every night, absolutely. the workmen said, hey, forget it. We're not going to work. They went out. They built massive protections. Everybody's survival instinct was at play there.
The African name for these killers was Shaitani, which means devils of the night.
And it was very easy for people to convert lions that nobody could kill, that at random could kill whomever they wanted, into some sort of mythical creature.
Supernatural or not, the Maneaters of Tasavo seemed unstoppable.
The Tasavo workmen used to barricade themselves behind thorn bomas, these walls of acacia thorn with 2-inch thorns attached to every branch. The lions were so persistent in their attempts to attack the workmen, they'd force their way through these bomas and drag people out through the bomas themselves.
Sometimes they would just pick them up in their jaws, jump over the thorn bush fence, and then proceed to eat the poor unfortunate right outside, which for his fellows back inside the bomas would listen to the crunching of the bones and think, is he going to come back? No, I'm safe tonight. But they would still have to listen to their comrade being devoured.
They combined amazing strength with the unseen stealth of a ghost as they strolled into camp and killed at their leisure.
It's amazing to think that a lion could transport with no difficulty at all a 150 or 180 pound man. But the fact of the matter is lions routinely drag zebras and buffalo some distance.
John Patterson took it upon himself to stop the possessed lions.
Patterson stinted no effort in staking himself out, spending all night sitting in a small tree over the carcass of a donkey, trying to lure the lions, calling them to places, and each day his journal just cries of frustration that he's in a tree on this side of the river. Meanwhile, he hears the next morning that there's been an attack on the other side and 2 more workmen have disappeared and so on. This went on day after day, month after month.
The uncanny ability of these lions to avoid their hunter defied explanation. It was as if they could read Patterson's mind.
It was events like this that led everyone associated with these lions to see them as something far more than just lions, but really supernatural terrors of the night.
Finally, after almost 8 months, Patterson was in the right place at the right time and almost became the next victim.
After he had found an area where he thought it was likely that the lion would come back, he decided to set up all night for the lion. Rather than a tree, he constructed a blind and a hide for himself made out of a camp bed litter up on the top of 10-foot poles. He thought that this would make him safe, but matters quickly took an unexpected turn.
Suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. John Patterson wrote,
"And instead of making off or coming for the bait prepared for him, the lion began to stalk me. For about 2 hours, he horrified me by slowly creeping around and around my crazy structure, gradually edging his way nearer and nearer. If one of the flimsy poles should break, or if the lion could spring the 12 feet which separated me from the ground, the thought was an unpleasant one."
John Patterson was able to shoot 2 rounds into the lion as it got dangerously close to him. It ran off into the brush. It wasn't until the next morning that the lion was found dead, 20 yards from where Patterson had shot him. The attack stopped, and construction resumed on the railroad.
After he was successful in shooting the first lion, for a while the second lion disappeared, then several weeks later came back, started again taking men night after night.
One night while John Patterson stood watching a tree, the last rogue lion came to stalk his human prey. Patterson took 2 shots at the circling animal. The next evening, Patterson went out to find the wounded animal. Following the tracks, they spotted it. John Patterson wrote,
"I at once took careful aim and fired. Instantly, he sprang out and made a most determined charge down on us. I fired again and knocked him over. The second he was up once more and coming for me as fast as he could in his crippled condition.
Running for his life, Patterson swung up on a branch as the enraged lion lunged at him. From the safety of his perch, Patterson got off another shot. The lion was hit again. It lay still on the ground. The reign of terror of the Tasavo lions was finally over, but not before the lions ate 135 men. The question still remains. What caused these lions to hunt human prey? Were they demons sent to stop the railroad as local legend suggests? Over 100 years later, scientists may have discovered a more practical answer. A simple sore tooth.
And what this abscess means is that the Tasavo lion would have had enormous pain with any sort of pressure on this tooth. So without the ability to clamp down and hold its prey, it simply would have been unable to kill a buffalo or zebra or any other large prey. And in consequence, this Tasavo lion had no alternative but to pursue a prey that was slower and softer and much easier to kill than a buffalo. And the railroad workers who had few defenses against these marauding lions were just camping in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Or were the Tasavo lions genetic mutations with a taste for human flesh? These killers looked different than the other lions in Africa. They didn't possess the characteristic mane of the male, and they were unusually large, almost 10 feet long and weighed close to 500 pounds.
The Tasavo lions, they were almost a third larger than a normal lion. Talk about something with that kind of weight, that kind of holding, grabbing, and catching capacity. I mean, nobody would have a chance against them.
And why were the lions so difficult to kill?
They had so much trouble trapping and hunting, where really lions aren't hard to hunt ordinarily. They seem to be much more intelligent, seem to know what they were doing. They had a plan.
One thing is known for sure. Until finally stopped by an equally relentless hunter, these mysterious lions ruled the jungle and reigned supreme as the Maneaters of Tasavo. Later on In Search Of, can disembodied spirits take to the road? This driver found out the hard way. And next, think aliens are just here for a friendly visit? So did this man, until he experienced a close encounter of the worst kind. Our next story may contain information too sensitive for some to handle. The topic is alien abduction. Men and women snatched away to serve in experiments that left them scarred for life. Has Earth been the target of extraterrestrials? If so, why are experts terrified to acknowledge the alien menace?
I think that the alien presence has been with us for at least 6,000 years, and I think they're here to stay until they get done what they intend to do.
What we need to do is get the facts out to people that not all UFOs and alien encounters are of the friendly type.
Startling home video, shocking photos, and eyewitnesses have led many to believe that we are menaced by aliens.
Now, we may be lucky and turn out that there are these really nice, friendly, huggable little ETs who are here to help us out, but I don't really see any evidence pointing in that direction.
Richard Dolan is an author of a book that uncovers the truth behind government secrecy surrounding UFOs. He maintains that the public has to take seriously the alarming indications that aliens may indeed have evil intentions. 2 examples: hideous mutilations and terrifying abductions.
I have over 1,000 cases on record, and I've investigated more cases than that literally worldwide.
Daryl Sims investigates abduction phenomena.
Many people have had experiences that are so shocking that they simply, literally, don't want to remember.
Daryl claims he was only 4 years old when he had his first conscious memory of being abducted.
My events spanned from 1952 to 1965. For 13 years, these entities involved themselves in my life at the most inopportune times.
His last experience was also the worst. Daryl remembers a total of 5 menacing aliens invading his room.
I have never experienced anything, personally, greater than what happened to me in a traumatic form at age 17. The absolute feeling there is so horrific. And the helplessness, the fact that there's nothing you can do while these entities do what they do. There was no way I could live with this nightmare. I just was not going to do it. And I blocked out that entire area of my life.
To make something positive of his traumatic close encounters, Daryl Sims has dedicated himself to other alleged victims of alien abduction. Through hypnotic regression, he helps them purge their bad memories. Daryl recorded this hypnotic regression with a home video camera.
He was literally screaming so loud that he could not hear me give him suggestions to ease the pain.
But a number of UFO researchers maintain that humans aren't the only species the aliens are experimenting with. For some unknown reason, cattle seem to have also been singled out. According to Richard Dolan's research, the statistics on these cases are staggering.
Between 1973 and 1975, the state of Colorado confirmed more than 130 cattle mutilations. In the following decades, there have been approximately 10,000 mutilation reports.
There is a real commonality among the different types of animal mutilations. Usually, there are organs removed.
An expert in this field is biologist Colm Kelleher of the National Institute for Discovery Science.
We know that there are perpetrators that were involved in the mutilation of these animals. We don't know who those perpetrators are, but we definitely know that these were not a predator or scavenger. Even under a low-powered microscope, if you look at the skin of an animal, you can distinguish very easily between a sharp-cut instrument and the tearing associated with a predator or scavenger.
One astonishing case study began one morning when a Colorado rancher and his wife were out tagging new calves in their herd.
They went down to the next animal about 300 yards away and proceeded to tag that animal and check other animals. About 30 minutes later, they noticed that the mother of the animal was acting strangely. So they came back up to investigate, and they found the calf that they had tagged 30 to 40 minutes previously lying spread-eagled on the ground. There was absolutely nothing left in the animal. There was no blood on the ground, there was no blood on the skin of the animal. All of the tissues had been removed. With the two ranchers 300 yards away, it had been removed in complete silence and in broad daylight. We had this professional tracker go over every inch of the ground for a mile radius around the animal, and not a single track was found.
These reports are frightening enough, but according to author Jim Hickman, they pale next to newly uncovered stories that the aliens have also dissected human victims. The shocking evidence when we return.
This program contains images which may be disturbing to younger or sensitive viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Is Earth the target of an alien invasion? According to UFO expert Jim Hickman, people have been the victims of extraterrestrial attacks.
Many people have
know about the cattle mutilations that have happened throughout the years, but a lot of folks don't know about the humans that have been involved in this. Okay, I don't think the aliens are being intentionally evil. I think they're performing a scientific experiment. I think that we're test subjects.
After all, we tag animals in the wild all the time. We track them and monitor them. Sometimes we perform hideous procedures on animals. How unusual would it be that others might do the same to us?
Probably the most famous one would be the White Sands case back in 1956. A serviceman had been abducted from the White Sands missile test area, and one of the majors that was stationed at White Sands saw a disc-shaped saucer, actually picked the person up and put him into the saucer.
The sergeant had been missing for 3 days when his mutilated body was found in the middle of the desert.
There's no blood in the body at all. He had been mutilated in the classic style of cattle, and the military intelligence people got involved, and their conclusion was that it was an unknown incident. It was not a murder, at least not by human hands.
The best documented human mutilation case happened on the outskirts of Sao Paulo, Brazil. This horrific incident has been thoroughly investigated by Brazilian ufologist Encarnacion Zapata Garcia. She took our cameras to the site where the body was found, the Guarapianga Dam.
In 1988, some children who were going fishing found the body of a man of approximately 50 years of age with some very strange bruises. The similarity between these photographs and the photographs of the mutilation cases of cattle and other animals in the United States, Canada, Brazil, and other parts of the world are great, very shocking, because not only externally, but also internally, the cases are very similar. I would almost say identical.
In the Brazilian case, no one from the Sao Paulo Police Department or medical examiner's office was willing to publicly comment on this mysterious death.
You know, maybe it's just possible that all this publicity on UFOs isn't a good thing. Maybe, just maybe, that there are good reasons for keeping this secret.
Are we the target of alien invaders? We are still waiting for definitive proof. Until then, a little advice. Examine the evidence with an open mind and keep watching the skies. A haunting roadside encounter terrorized this couple. Their chilling story is more common than you think. Take a ride with a ghost. Next on In Search Of. Murderous bandits to high-speed collisions, taking to the road has always been a risky endeavor. But now, paranormal encounters have been reported by drivers navigating darkened roadways. Our next story takes us to a haunted stretch of highway, where the living intersect with the dead.
I walked to the back of the car, shaking, trembling, and feeling sick, and looked, and still nothing. And, well, she's got to be somewhere. She's got to be somewhere.
I looked up to the right, and walking along the side of the road was a young girl in a white gown. Told my wife, I says, honey, wake up. I think I saw Resurrection Mary.
Which absolutely terrified the family.
Roadside phantoms, highway spirits. Hitchhiking ghosts appear, then vanish in the blink of an eye. It's a bizarre phenomenon that has occurred on the streets of Chicago and the rural highways of England. Though some lost souls appear as terrifying hags, One alleged spirit has enticed travelers with her beauty and charm. She is Chicago's most notorious ghost. Drivers who give her a ride swear she's real until she mysteriously disappears. Ghost hunter Richard Crowe has spent 36 years studying the legend of Resurrection Mary.
Mary was a beautiful young blonde Polish-American girl, and back in the mid-1930s, she just loved the big band sound, and she would get out as many nights per week as she could to hear the music and dance her heart out.
But Mary's dancing days were cut tragically short. She was killed in an automobile accident after a night out on the town. Laid to rest in Resurrection Cemetery, she was wearing her favorite party dress and dancing shoes. Since her death in 1930, many claim to have encountered the ghost of Resurrection Mary.
The most interesting account, especially because it involves physical evidence, was the report of a sighting that Mary was inside the front gates of Resurrection Cemetery one night back in 1976.
When the police arrived, Mary had once again vanished into the night. But what they did find was shocking. 2 bars on the front gate, made of solid bronze, were pulled completely apart. And left behind were handprints in the form of scorch marks.
That could only have been accomplished, according to the police, and as far as I'm concerned, by a supernatural entity, because there's no way it could have been faked without great expense, not in plain sight of constant flow of traffic out in that area. I really think that was physical evidence that Mary exists.
That physical evidence has been supported by further eyewitness accounts. One foggy summer night in 1980, the legend of Resurrection Mary became a chilling reality for Sam Maranto and his wife, Julie.
We were coming home early in the morning. It was between 1 o'clock and 1:30. And we were driving along Route 171, which is Archer Road, heading towards home. I looked up to the right, and walking along the side of the road was a young girl in a white gown. First of all, I'm thinking, what is a young girl walking along the side of the road at this hour of the day?
Sam slowed down to get a closer look.
She was very pretty. She had blonde hair. It was up in pin curls, and she was holding with her left hand shoes, which I presume to be dancing shoes.
Many alleged ghost sightings are accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature. And at that moment, Sam's car became ice cold.
So I turned the heat on. Mind you now, it's August 23rd. And I rolled up, made sure the windows were up. And I looked back one more time to look at the girl, and she was still there walking along.
Then a strange and overwhelming emotion hit Sam.
All of a sudden, I had these weird, uncontrolled feelings. My hair was standing up in the back of my neck, and I had uncontrollable tearing, just tearing in a very sad feeling. So I decided I'm going to turn around and see if that was Resurrection Mary.
But by the time Sam turned the car around, Resurrection Mary had vanished.
I just didn't want to be just alone with my wife. I went to my parents' house, rang the doorbell. My brother Scott comes to the door. First thing he says to me is, "Sam, looks like you saw a ghost." And I told him, I said, "Scott, you know what? I think I did."
It took Sam an entire year before he could drive down Archer Road again.
I've never, ever felt that rotten in that short of a period of time without any reason ever before. Never.
Paranormal researchers believe that if a person has died tragically or in a state of agitation, it is not uncommon for those who encounter the spirit to literally take on their emotions.
The last night of her life, she was in the Willowbrook when she had a fight with her boyfriend, left the place in a huff, and it was that state of mind that led her to survive death and come back again and again.
Over the years, several taxicab drivers have described encounters with a beautiful passenger they believe to be Resurrection Mary. When the cabbie asks for directions, she leads him up Archer Road.
Stop, this will be fun.
The cabbie, knowing it's a cemetery on the right and a bunch of closed stores on the left, turns to ask her what she means. She's vanished. The spirit of Resurrection Mary is very much alive around Chicago. The southwest side, anywhere in that area, this ghostly young lady may be encountered when the sun goes down and the moon comes out, and out there on the roadways, the ghosts may walk.
But Mary is not the only hitchhiking ghost. 4,000 miles across the Atlantic, a pair of spectral apparitions terrify British drivers. We'll have those shocking stories when we come back. It has been widely reported that the ghost of a beautiful woman walks the Archer Road in Chicago. And according to eyewitness accounts, similar spirits haunt Bluebell Hill in Maidstone, England. The apparent victim of a tragic car crash that occurred in 1965 terrifies motorists by walking into the path of oncoming cars. She, too, is a young woman dressed in white. British researcher Sean Tudor relies on the evidence of highly credible testimony.
I have around 20 named witness encounters describing the ghost of Bluebell Hill. In the most clear-cut examples where the motorists have struck the figure, they've been so convinced that they've had dealings with a real human being that they've gone off to the police to report the incident, sure that they've struck and killed someone.
It happened on Bluebell Hill to Ian Sharp on the way home one night after his shift as a tour bus driver.
Driving down the hill about 50 miles an hour, just coming home normally, I saw this lady, didn't take a lot of notice, and she just stood there while I was approaching, and then she just ran straight out in front of the car. I was absolutely terrified, I just didn't know what to do. I got out of the car, I was shaking, I was scared. Thought, I've got to look. And I went to the front of the car, kneeled down and looked under the car, and there was nothing. Nothing at all. I walked to the back of the car, shaking, trembling, and feeling sick, and looked, and still nothing. And, well, she's got to be somewhere. She's got to be somewhere.
Ian rushed to the local police station to file a report. Constable Roger Ginn was the officer on duty that night.
Certainly Mr. Sharp, when I saw him, looked genuinely shocked and worried that he had struck a pedestrian on Bluebell Hill.
Ian and the officers went back to the scene of the accident to search for a body.
Definitely just about here.
You're absolutely terrified. You're scared stiff. And you're shaking, you're trembling because you know you've hit somebody.
After an exhaustive search, the police came up cold. Ian Sharp would never really know what happened. Was he too tired to see and think clearly? Or did he have an actual hit-and-run encounter with the supernatural? There have been other sightings at Bluebell Hill, but these involve shocking encounters with a more terrifying phantom.
Two families came forward to report what seems to be an entirely different character on Bluebell Hill. And this was of an old, wizened figure of a hag, a hunched old woman, very menacing appearance in dark clothing.
This ghastly apparition actually hurls herself onto the windshield of cars.
Which absolutely terrified the family. The husband tried to get the car in gear to pull away. As they pulled away, the figure shuffled to the other side of the road and vanished from the roadside.
The stories seem too detailed and well accounted to be dismissed as fatigue or white line fever. So heed this traveler's advisory. Keep both eyes on the road, your hands on the wheel, and never stop for strangers. Thanks for watching In Search Of. I'm Mitch Pileggi. Good night.
Oh.